Good morning. Good morning, everyone, no matter where you are in this wonderful, amazing, crazy, and rather insane world we're living in right now. A lot of ugliness going on and a lot of beauty all at the same time. Isn't it strange that we humans can create such a mess and at the same time create such wonderful, beautiful things? And then you shake your head at the next thing that comes along and go, what in the world were we thinking? Or maybe what were we not thinking? Anyway, I'm not going to be on long. It's my time uh, scheduling for sleeping. I still have not gotten it straightened out yet. We'll work on it, but it is not. Um, it's not been really perfect yet. I haven't gotten it down where I really needed to get it down at. Anyways, today I had a pressing couple of emails from some black ladies who said they were black ladies. And one lady said, I'm African American. And the other lady said she's black American. And they wanted me to address the issue of why I don't consider myself African American. As did the young woman, and I say young, they're in their 40s. I'm in my 60s, late 60s. Asked me why I did not consider myself African American. Well, that's a loaded question. I can only relate my experience. Okay, I can only relate my experience. I grew up in Old Town Chicago, where they still had Jim Crow laws in place. They were phasing it out, of course. I was 8, 9 years old. They were still phasing it out, but it wasn't completely gone out of the city yet. There are a lot of places in the city and in the suburbs where Jim Crow was still in place and prevalent and even enforced in some areas. So, but being so young, I never paid any attention to it. I just did what I was going to do, whether there was a sign that said whites only or whatever. I didn't really care. I was never reprimanded or abused in any way. If I did the faux pas of drinking out of a white only fountain, or if I went into a white only place and sat down to eat something, I was never reprimanded. I was never accosted as a child. So maybe I was lucky. Maybe I was fearless. Who knows? I don't think I was. I don't think I was aware enough to be afraid. I knew that the Jim Crow law existed, not as a Jim Crow law, but just as something my mother would say. Oh, there are places you're not supposed to go because white people don't want you there. And I said, I tell my mother, I don't care, and I didn't. So I didn't. I don't know why. I just didn't. I grew up in Chicago. I enjoyed Chicago in a way I could. The libraries and the science museums and um, the university library, which I thought was pretty cool. But I spent a lot of time in the library and museums, art museums, science museums. Um, yes, I did go to grade school, but I only went there to take my tests or my quizzes, and then I'd disappear because they really didn't. They really weren't teaching me. They was just newly integrated, and so as little black kids were, if we wanted our education, we better go after it ourselves because they weren't interested in focusing their attention on teaching us anything. We were just in existence in the room. We were a placeholder per se. So I went out after my own education, which I still do. I don't trust anybody else to give me an education, provide me an education. I volunteer to learn it from someone who wants to teach me. And those who don't want to teach me, I ignore and go and find someone who will. I've always been this way, and I probably won't change in that way. as to being the difference to being an African American and why I don't consider myself an African American, because I'm not. I did not come over here from Africa, any part of Africa. How can I call myself an African American? I think a lot of Black folks in this country are suffering from an identity crisis. It's an identity crisis, a psychologically concentrated perversity that was uh, we were indoctrinated uh, into when we were brought here as slaves, along with a lot of other people who were brought here as slaves. They lost everything. They lost their language. They lost their connection to the land of their fathers and their forefathers and their mothers and their grandmothers. They lost their culture. They lost their religious beliefs. They lost their sense of who they were on this planet and how they related to this planet. It was all gone. It was taken from them and systematically removed from them so that there's no identity. Because if you remember, if you go back in time, if you go back in our little bit of history that we know of here, a little bit of here in America, we started out as blacks, or as they started, and then they went to Negroes. Okay, here in America, I don't know in other countries, but in America it was blacks, and they went to calling us Negroes. Um, and then, of course, the other N word, which they developed for derogatory, psychologically perverse reasons. Um, and then we went from Negroes to black again, during the Black Power, remember? Black Power. And then they went from Black Power, in between there was colored. White people said, well, let's not offend anybody. Let's just call them colored. That didn't work. It was a rootless uh, indication of who we thought we were. It was rootless. It had no roots. It had no place to plant itself. And then it went from Negro to colored to black to colored, and then they came up with African American. Now, who came up with African American? I don't know. I'm not gonna lie to you and tell you I know, because I don't. All I know is that as soon as it came out, that people were now saying that you have to identify me as an African American, it really upset me. It's kind of like it upset me when they called for affirmative action. I considered affirmative action as an insult to my intelligence. I didn't need you to dumb down anything. I needed those people just get the hell out of the way so I could go and learn and do what I needed to do to navigate this place they called America, and American business, and American uh, so-called American white culture. That's what I wanted. I didn't want them to dumb anything down. I didn't want them to make, um, I didn't want them to uh, scoot over on the bench. I simply wanted a bench that I could sit on. That's all I wanted. I didn't say, "Oh, scoot over." I said, "No, I want a bench. Where's my bench? Where am I going to sit? Because I'm part of humanity. I mean, I'm not lesser than you. I'm not greater than you. So I think I deserve a place on a bench or a chair. I don't need you to lower the chair, heighten the chair, make the chair. Just scoot me a chair like everybody else gets scooted a chair. Same thing." So to me, affirmative action was an insult. But to me, being called an African American is simply a misnomer. I'm not from Africa. Okay? I was born here. I was born in the bed of my mother in Cook County, Illinois, between two warring factions of family members. And my poor mother, at a young age, had a real battle going on with her in the middle and me, her being so young, for her to finish high school at 16 and get into college at 17 and still try to raise myself and then later my brother on her own while going to school and going to work. So I really could not see this whole African American thing. When people looked at me and I was traipsing around all over Chicago, they would say to me, whose little black girl is this? They didn't call me African American. I was somebody black. Every white person I know, as soon as it hits their brain, from their eyes to their brain, it's not African American, it's black. They don't, I'm sorry, I hate to burst your bubble, but white folks, when they look at you, they don't say African American in their heads. Just listen to them, watch their faces. You pay attention to their faces, you know exactly what they're thinking. People's faces tell you a lot of things if you bother to pay attention. They don't see you as African American. You are simply black, period. So to me, I am a black American of African descent who is completely disconnected from her motherland, whatever that land is. From people I've met coming from Somalia and Uganda and Ghana, they keep telling me I look like a Nigerian woman. They mistake me as someone being from Nigerian. And so a family member did the whole genealogical tree thing, that they do these days. He didn't use a program or anything. He did it before they had all these searches for ancestry. But he did it the hard way. And he really did a good job. He tracked us way back. I mean, way back, to the number of one of our ancestors who had a number. And this ancestor was a female. One of them was a female anyway. I don't know about the male, but I do know about the female. And she was relatively young, probably 16 or 17, from Nigeria, although they didn't understand how to spell or pronounce Nigeria. So they just said Niger. So we knew that was Nigeria. And after that, a lot of things were added to our genetic line. There was some French added, that there was some Choctaw, there was Cree and Blackfoot added to our genetic line. And so we lost a lot. I mean, we were so far removed from Africa at this point that to call myself an African American, it's just plain not true. It's stupid. Okay. If we want to find a root to sink into the ground, a ground that will take us, we have to find the ground that will take us where we are. And if I go to Africa, I doubt very much if I moved to Africa today, I could find a piece of ground where I could sink my roots in, even at my age, and feel as though I am now African. I will always be a black woman who's an American, period. That's just the way it is. So I hope that answers the lady's questions. If I hurt or offended anyone, deal with it, just like we deal with everything else every day. Last but not least, I want to send out there to the people of Palestine. Only God can help you at this point. You're up against it, and my condolences, especially to the women and the children and the elders on both sides of this war, who are getting battered and beaten and bloodied because a bunch of men have decided they just refuse to compromise and get along. my condolences to all who have lost loved ones. And let's hope that if, in fact, there is a God, this gets solved and stopped as soon as possible. I don't care how you look at it. War is perverse in the extreme as far as humankind is concerned. Well, I wish you all well. Tomorrow is, I think, Tuesday. And so tomorrow I need to start a new chapter in my life and start trying to discipline myself to getting up at a certain time so I can train myself to be at work. Most likely I'll be working from 9 to 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I have to be at work at 9. I got to be up at a certain time to catch the bus. So that means I have to go to bed at a certain time. So I'm going to have to train myself to do that. That's the big goal for this week and this next week. I hope this finds you all well and happy and doing okay. Please take care of yourselves. And please be kind to yourself and someone else today. You never know who's going to need a kind word just to keep them from falling into the pit. And give a kind word, a kind hand, a kind smile to someone, including yourself today. Till later. Bye-bye.